Transaction debt. A few years back, we started seeing the trend of an industry that wanted to go paperless. For obvious reasons, we don't want to cut down so many trees. As real estate agents, we love signing paperwork, and it's great. And I really don't want to get rid of that completely, but there is scenarios where we can actually reduce on paper consumption. And for convenience and I guess having access to files quickly, we wanted to be a part of that going paperless trend as well. And this is where Denise might correct me on the back end. Lone Wolf, which is what we've been using as a technology for many years, they started changing their platform. So it was a necessary evil. Not only did we want to go paperless for saving more trees, but it was a necessary evil on the back end. We needed to update the software, so we had to go with a paperless solution. Last year, you may recall, we did decide to go with Transaction Desk, that Shazad evaluated a variety of different platform software as a service, and Transaction Desk between the management said, okay, let's go with that. We're gonna go with Transaction Desk. As we've been really evaluating it, we started in November, rolling it out. And on the back end is really just what I want to show you guys. There has been changes, and I don't know if we did a full announcement, and I think we could have done a better job of just letting you guys know, hey, this is what you're seeing right now, and this is the impact you might see. Because actually in the last few weeks, I've heard a couple of people saying, hey, something's different here. Hey, that's on us. We need to update you guys on just what some of those changes are. But we're not 100% committed to the product, but we're pretty much there. And we'll go through reasons why in a minute, why we are there. So let me just share my screen. So everybody should be familiar with Webforms. When you come in either to Stratus, and you're using the software that Stratus looks like, or if you're using the Matrix product, because you could be on either or through the Toronto Real Estate Board. Of course, outside the Toronto Real Estate Board, it's pretty common for them to use the software as Matrix. Every either platform gives you the option to go into Webforms, click on Webforms, and again, this is where you are creating your transactions. And this is mine that I'm showing here. The big reason why we went with Transaction Desk, it's actually the same company that does Webforms, and it's the same company that provides Authentisign. So it made a lot of sense to kind of keep it all in the same family of software as a service, and it integrates really well. There were other products. It's just there's a couple of other steps, and then whenever you're using the different software language, there's going to be challenges with, I guess, programming and code there. So this was a real obvious solution for it. So when you pop into into the Webforms, I just want to show you guys what I'm just going to mute Pavitar there. Sorry, Pavitar, muted you. I just want to show you what you're seeing. What's the difference? Okay, so let's go into a transaction. We're going to go into 75 Udine. This thing that you see here is this big yellow line. It says your office has locked this transaction from further editing. Okay, so this is number one change. When I go in to looking at like what has been locked here. And the reason we're locking things is because Trevor, as the salesperson here, has submitted paperwork. And so the contract is now active. There's the paperwork side where I do my forms, agreement of purchase and sale for commercial. All that information is in there. But there's also, once I've submitted this with signatures, and I've submitted it to the front desk, which has been sent down to the girls downstairs, they have uploaded this to the same file of 75 Udine. And so there's a live file in here. And Denise, Renee, and Anne, at any point, you can jump in if you want to correct me, but you can actually view these in the checklist. And so if you want to see Trevor submitted the agreement of purchase and sale, and here it is, but I've done it in the forms, which without signatures. This is now on the back end. This is the agreement of purchase and sale as it has been signed with all the signatures. And you can see that there. Now, this is the contract. So there's your forms that you guys make changes to all the time. But now in the same file under 75 UDIME, you're now getting the contract there. So you'll have both in the same file. What this allows us to do for obvious reasons, when I submit this paperwork, rather than the staff downstairs making a file and having a paper file of this, and then putting that into a filing cabinet and storing that for 7 years, we are now going to have this in the cloud, in the software transaction desk, and it will be accessible not just to you, but to our office as well too. Many times Joanne will have a case that pops up and there's questions that she needs answered, and she needs that file right away, rather than us having to go over to our storage facility physically and pull that file out, which is time consuming, inconvenient, and there's a cost associated with that, of course. It's just a matter of going through the proper links, and we've got that stored. So the convenience of that is huge to the brokerage and to the agent as well too, if they want to file that as well. So what has the office locked in? If you go to, you want to see the details of what's locked, you can still do everything you would normally do. Nothing's changed there. It's just the address. Certain things have been locked in. So obviously the address, we're not going to change the address on this file now. We are in a live contract here. Contract lock comes into play here. We can't change the address in this file. Legal description, anything that's grayed out in this file are things that can't be changed. We have a list price. We have a purchase price. That purchase price has been accepted by the buyer and the seller. You can't change that now. There's no amount of changing unless you do an amendment to that, and then it'll change appropriately there. So that at this point is probably the biggest impact or user experience that you guys are seeing as far as what we're doing. There's one caveat to that, which is interesting. When we looked back at how people are, I guess, using their web forms, you can see that Trevor does his web forms by an address, the property address. If you did your file by the name of the client or a buyer, if I did this by Daniel, who's the buyer, and I submitted my paperwork to the front desk, Katrina would get that and go, who the heck is Daniel? I don't know who Daniel is. And she'll go into the file of Trevor's transactions to upload it. She'll look for 75 UDIME. She naturally does that. Why does she naturally do that? Because that's how our folks downstairs are naturally filing paperwork. They naturally file it by the transaction. What we're discovering right now is that probably half of you file by a property address and half of you file by a name. One's not right and one's not wrong. You can actually do it any way you want. What we're evaluating though is if you submitted by Daniel's name and Katrina goes in with 75 UDIME, she's now, what we started doing is creating a file by the address. We don't like that though, because number one, it might confuse you now when you go into your system. You're going to see 75 UDIME, you're going to see Daniel. My files are created under Daniel, and now I've got a contract, all my contracts under a different file by that address. That's inefficient. So what we're kind of discovering right now, not everybody does it by address. And I think between Denise and Shazad and myself, we're just kind of trying to figure out, is there an option to do both? Is there an option to do to file this as convenient to the agent as possible? We're evaluating that. I think at this point we're going to leave it open, but I think at some point it probably makes sense for us to really standardize how we're going to ask our agents to set up a transaction. And I think we probably should, and we're open to discussion, because this is kind of one of those things, as we're rolling it out, we're figuring out different ways that could impact the user. And at this point, I think we'd probably be leaning towards registering a transaction by the address rather than by a name. That does come with complications. I do understand that, but we're in the process of trying to figure that out. We do ask for your patience on that and your cooperation. And we're definitely open to making this as convenient for you as possible. And we're not changing software here. We're using it's an add-on, like an app to the software we're using existing right now. So I just wanted to, it was fair. Someone brought up to my attention last week, hey, Trevor, we should at least be talking about this because there's a couple of little changes here. Absolutely. It's a fair point to keep you guys in the loop of where we're at. But we've been doing this now since November on the back end. And I know a couple of you have noticed a few changes, but if you're labeling by the address, you're probably not experiencing much of an impact. If you're labeling by the name, you're going to see big changes because the front desk won't know by your name. You might have one client, one buyer, for example, that does have multiple offers on different properties, right? So you can see Jane and John Smith, and you can see that over and over and over again. We don't know which Jane and John Smith we're going into here. We have to identify by the address. So that's a couple of things we're trying to work through